What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Hey guys, so great to talk with you after seeing the movie last night at the screening.
Great talking with you guys too.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Very excited.
Checking it out.
Congratulations on the movie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yet another one that you guys have done together. What is this, the third collaboration, fourth?
No, this is only the second one. It was Animal Creation was the first one, yeah. But I mean, we've sort of known each other and crossed paths throughout the years.
Okay, yeah. It's funny, in my mind, you guys are like a filmmaking team, even though I know you've had your separate projects, but...
No, I wish. No, I mean, like, we had such a great time on Animal Creation. I mean, I think we were both hoping to find our way back to each other, like all great romances. And then, but just, again, he's so easy to work with. I'm just a huge fan of his work, so of course it just makes my stuff look better.
And likewise, I mean, yeah, it was Annabelle Creation was such a great experience that I've just been sort of wanting to get back to that.
Yeah, is that how you guys met? Was on that project?
I mean, we may have met early. I mean, we were both sort of in the New Line, making horrors with movies with them. That sort of crew.
Yeah, that Lights Out was like one that got. It was like one of the stories of like the one that got away. I think it was like the day that kind of went viral. I had a meeting at New Line that day. And I was like, this is going to be, this is my discovery. Like, I'm going to bring this to them. And then, and it was like 5 minutes before they had already heard it. And I was like, oh, damn it. Of course, they're already on it. But I loved it. So I think then we ran into each other because you were meeting with them. And I think I had made sure that I also had a meeting that day so I could bump into you in the lobby.
Yeah, David, I read that you have described your life as being divided into before Lights Out and after Lights Out, which is funny because I also think of our lives as like before Dead Meat and after Dead Meat because it like changed so much. Gary, do you have a similar project that you use to demarcate?
Oh, interesting.
Because you've had kind of like a steady roll of scripts and features.
I used to write Sci-Fi Channel movies, and there's a movie called In the Spider's Web. It was the first one. And it was like, they would have a title, they'd have a couple actors and a location, and they shoot in a week, but they didn't have a script. So they'd be like, hey, can you write something in a week? And, at the time they were paying guild rates and allowed me to like quit my job waiting tables and bartending and stuff. And just like, you make a couple grand, but it was enough for, I was getting paid to write, and it was enough to pay my rent. And so it's like when I was able to sort of become that kind of full-time writer, scraping by, I think about that as kind of the, and then of course Annabelle, I feel like really got me into that studio system. I'd done some studio jobs, but that really kind of got me going.
I have such fond memories of watching sci-fi originals with my friends at like sleepovers because they would often play them like super late at night. So they would have like location actors, everything, and they would have you write for that. That seems so strange. It's so backwards.
We have Eric Roberts. We have
Eric Roberts is on standby.
By the way, F. Murray Abraham was in The Spider's Web. Like I got to write for a brilliant performance. But it was like, I think it was, they were marketing. I mean, that was like, it felt very Corman-esque in a way. Like I loved that. Like I liked, because so much time in the studio system is development, and it can go years and years and years until either something gets made or it doesn't. So I like the immediacy of, I know this is going to be shot in a week, and it really, and for someone who certainly can take their time when I don't really feel like the deadline, the pressure is on. I like that, like, no, you got to turn it in, and it really, and then it helped me on these types of movies. I mean, Annabelle was the same thing. It was, The Conjuring had come out, they wanted to do the spin-off of Annabelle, and it was like, we want to start shooting in January, and they were talking to me about it in October. So because I had done all those sci-fi movies and stuff, it got me, I was able to churn out the first draft of Annabelle in 2 weeks, and that got the director and cast and all that stuff, and we were off and going. And then, of course, during production, it helps too, being able to sort of churn things around quickly. So yeah, I mean, it was good to cut my teeth on that in that world. And I still wish they were making them. I mean, I love those things. They're so fun. I mean, it's like when people are, it's like they're not so precious about things, and they're just kind of like, let's throw it out there. And I always dug that.
That is the best when it's a movie that's like just about to go, or like, because otherwise it can be years in
Yeah.
Hollywood of just like talking about them or doing drafts after drafts, and then it might never happen, you know. So it's great.
Yeah, like
have those
having
situations.
such a short timeline, you don't have the, I guess, quote unquote luxury of, oh, everyone has to say yes to this. So you can maybe get away with choices that are a bit more outlandish or polarizing.
Yeah, no time for someone to be like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Maybe we shouldn't have that.
Yeah, we need to focus group this.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely right. Momentum is a great thing because it kind of cuts out a lot of the noise. And, you know, occasionally you'll have that record scratch moment if someone says something and it just completely derails the process. But yeah, having sort of, you know, staring down the barrel of a release date or something, I find to be super helpful. And I also find more often than not, it's the scripts that take you a longer time, or the ones that have been, you sort of can tell you kind of overthought it, and you sort of, it's been overnoted, and it's been, you know, so I find the ones that like have more efficiency to the process is, I tend to get better results, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So with Until Dawn, we'll say it right away, just because I know lots of people watching this are going to be curious about it. I know you've answered it so many times, but the movie is not really the game, at least in terms of the story that we experience during the game. And I know that a lot of fans are like, hey, why are we using the Until Dawn name for this completely separate story? So do you want to talk about that? Because I've seen your answer, and I agree with what you have said about it. The game is essentially a movie that you're playing along with, and it's also mocap, so it's recognizable actors, it's realistic looking. So if we were to have a movie that was the same story, it would basically just be a live action remake of something that we've already watched
Just
and experienced.
pantomiming the same story.
It would have been hard to live up to that as well, because I mean the game is so great, and it is like a 10-hour movie, and that's what I loved about the script that Gary and Blair wrote, that it's an extension of the universe that was established in the game. So you get more Until Dawn rather than the same Until Dawn that we've already played and seen and experienced, you know. So that was what was exciting for me.
Yeah, I think it was like, you know, we kind of looked at it as like a sequel too. Like, I wouldn't want to make, you know, I don't know, you don't want the second movie to be the same as the first. You know, I mean, you want elements of it, of course, because you want it to be of the franchise. So we took elements of the game and made it and brought it into that movie. And certainly the character of Dr. Hill is the connective tissue between the game and the movie. But like, we look at it like, you know, ideally to me, it's like the game is chapter 1. This would be a chapter 2 type of thing. And then you'd have another movie, and it just progresses a story that I think, you know, when talking to the game developers and creators and stuff, of just, you know, they had this, you know, sort of broad overarching mythology to everything and stuff. And that was cool. I like that they were thinking just beyond the game. And I thought, well, we should do that with the movie too, and really, you know, push the story, and then and give people a different experience than they had when they were playing it on their couches. So, you know,
did you talk to Larry Fessenden or Will Biles at all?
I did talk to them, and you know, had great conversations, and then another group took over. You know, they're you know, I don't know what you know, there's talk of another game and stuff, and thinking about, well, okay, what would you do with it, or what you guys have plans for it, and some of that found its way into the movie as well. Like just some kernels, some seeds are planted in the movie that we had talked about when they were just talking about, like, you know, where they saw the franchise going and stuff. So it's like there's threads there that can be pulled at in future installments of games, or, you know, comics, whatever they want to do, you know. I saw, you know, something I really liked, and it was met with, you know, there's little success, but I thought a lot also about, remember, I think it was like the second Matrix came out right around the same time as the video game. And the game informed part of the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, and it was Jada Pickett's, what's his character's name? I can't remember. But she goes off and on an errand, and then the game becomes what that is. And I was like, oh, that's always so cool how there's a dialogue between the game and the movie and stuff. And I always dug that. So, you know, tried to do that with this one to some extent as well.
Yeah, you know, something aside from the obvious, you know, just the basic story and the characters, the kind of difficulty of choosing to whether directly adapt those or do something new. I am curious if kind of an underrated difficulty in adapting something like a game is just the way that you as a player or a viewer of the movie are receiving information about the story you're being told. Because something I like about Until Dawn and The Quarry is you're picking up like newspapers, flyers, you're reading through like records that are like left on a table, and it's this slow burn of things you're learning about the world you're in. Whereas a movie, you've got, you know, let's say 2 hours, and you have to convey that through, you know, the language of a movie. I would love to know how difficult that was to adapt, both from like a script perspective and just what you're showing on the screen and how you're having characters interact with the world around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really challenging because you can't go as in depth as you'd want to. Like, you know, in this, we have a scene where they're picking up newspapers and they're reading it, and they're doing the, you know, they find a videotape and they watch that, and like, so you have that sense of discovery that you would in a game. But there's so much of that in a game that, you know, it would be excruciating to watch, I think, when you're not, you know, someone just reads something and quietly whisper the words to themselves or something,
Right.
you know, but you know, so you almost have to take that approach of like, you know, there's some players like who will read everything. They want to get all the story in, and they look for everything. And there's some players who like, they pick it up and they just hit X to close it, and they move on, or they read like the headline of it, and you're kind of trying. You kind of have to find that middle ground a little bit of, you know, giving just enough information to push the story forward, but not enough where it really bogs down the momentum of the story.
I kind of felt that one character, Abe. Am I wrong in thinking he's kind of the stand-in for the player who just, you know, skip cutscene. Come on, stop. We gotta grab weapon. Like, that's how I read him, and I thought he was so funny that way. Like, in that way, it did really feel like a true video game adaptation.
And he's one of, I mean, he's a little smarter when it comes to some things, because he's the one who says like, well, we should try to get out of here. It doesn't work out, but I mean, that's the right idea for sure. So he, you know, he's pretty sane, but he also does some questionable things, which is great about these characters. That, you know, they're like real people. They're not sort of perfect, but yeah.
Yeah, I think two of the movie's biggest strengths are the cast and the kills, which are both phenomenal. But when it comes to the cast, what was the casting process like? Because every single one of those actors, and we had the pleasure of getting to talk to them before the movie and get to know them.
I was so interested in, you know, meeting them before getting to see the movie. I was like, I wonder if they're all just going to feel like slightly exaggerated versions of the people I just talked to. And it kind of felt like that was the case if you took certain facets of their personality and really exaggerated them.
Yeah, they were all so good. So how'd you find and land on these particular actors?
It was an extensive casting process. We did lots of auditions. I mean, so, like Michael, he had worked with Gary before on Annabelle Comes Home. So he was someone we knew. But it was just like, doing a really extensive search for the right people. And then once you see them, you just kind of know. Like with Odessa, it was just like, well, she's Nina, of course, you know. It's a long process, and it's not my favorite part, because I just want to get to the end where we have our cast, because it's so many auditions and it's tricky, but it pays off because they work so well together, and they were such. I mean, instantly they became best of friends, and I think you can feel that in the movie as well. Yeah,
their chemistry is great, both off camera and on the screen.
And it makes the job as a director much easier as well when you like cast it really well, because then it's just like, well, they sort of know their characters, or they are their characters, and then I can focus on all the other shit that goes on and all the things to stress about, because they're just a pleasure, you know.
After being cast, did they kind of were the characters changed at all to fit the performer better, or were they basically just doing exactly what you wrote, Gary?
There was some improv and like things that
they did,
changed,
which I'm always a fan of. You know, like little asides or clips or whatever, I think. But for the most part, I think they're always like, oh, can I say it like this? And more often than not, the answer is yes, as long as it doesn't, you know, screw up any story points or whatever. But yeah, no, they're very good at what they do. They can take what's there and make it sound as if it's there, you know.
Yeah, a lot of them
make it sound there.
Very good at throwing away lines. Just, you know, having these lines where they just kind of say in a just offhand way, and it feels so natural and it's very funny. Bell has a lot of them as that just got a lot of laughs in the theater last night.
Yeah, Bell is great. He's I think I sort of imagined quick. Yeah, and I sort of imagine Abe as being a little more sort of someone you don't really like, because he's a little bit of like, well, he can't do that. But you know, with Belmont as Abe, he becomes very likable.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Even when he does, some questionable things. You're just still like, yeah, but I still like him,
Were there ever any discussions about whether or not to turn this movie into a kind of gimmick film, like a Clue or something, where you do factor in the possible alternate endings of a story that you're telling,
or the different decision making
Yes.
from the game that is so inherent to that kind of gameplay? Because that's a great question. I was thinking of Clue when I first heard about this adaptation.
I would not have liked that because I think what they did was brilliant in that, with the sort of the night starting over, so you do get the different choices and different deaths. But when it comes to things like Clue, where you have like different endings in different theaters and things like that, I hate that because I was like, I want a movie to be, this is the movie.
Yeah.
That's why I hate like, Star Wars special editions and different things like that. No, don't change. Just have one version of the movie, like just one version of Blade Runner that we can all enjoy,
Yeah, I've been wanting to rewatch Blade Runner for a while now, but the thing that has stopped me is like, which version?
Which version?
It's like,
I know.
Give me a canonical version to watch, like the right one.
Yeah, you have to do your homework. So now, no, I'm very happy that it's like, this is one movie and this is the way it is.
Yeah, that does kind of stifle conversation about something, because like you're saying with Blade Runner, you end up just talking about the merits or the pros and cons of different versions instead of the thing itself.
Yeah, I'll say I'll probably I'm going to be I'll be, I guess, in the minority here, but I don't like the special editions and this and that. I'm not, because it's like I do go online and I'm like, I'm not getting a straight answer. Like I'm getting a lot of opinions, but I'm not getting a straight answer. But I love Clue. I love it. I love what they like. I did like that. Also, I don't think there's a definitive. They have it. I remember in the VHS they had, but here's what really happened.
Yeah,
So
here's what
kind of
could have
final
happened.
thing. But like, you're like, so I like that idea. Logistically, it is so hard to get a studio to wrap their heads around that. It's money, it's time. They go, well, then how do we, I think until someone does it and pulls it off and makes it a real success, it's just hard to really even start that conversation. It's kind of, we're going to film 4 different endings, and which is going to increase your budget by X amount. And then, and then you've got to figure out how to play, it's like, that's tough, especially at this budget level. So it's not even worth entertaining at a certain, because you just know what the answer is going to be,
With that sort of workaround of having the night reset and having the different things scare you and different evils attack them each night, you get to play around with different horror tropes and different horror subgenres. There's obviously a very heavy slasher element, but you get some body horror in there, a tiny bit of possession, there's a little bit of creature work. So what were some of your favorite tropes and styles to play in? And were you thinking about, like, when shooting it, stylistically matching the way you were shooting it to the subject matter of the night?
For sure. We wanted it to feel like, okay, now we're in sort of a slasher movie. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this movie, to get to play around in all these different genres, including genres I haven't done before, like slasher or found footage, and sort of find a new appreciation for that. Because like slashers haven't been my like top favorite horror genre. Like I love Halloween and like there's good slashers, but there haven't been like the top. But now after doing it in Until Dawn, I really liked doing it, and I thought it turned out really well. So now I kind of have a new appreciation for it and want to do more of it.
Yeah.
And found footage too. It was really fun to do.
I love found footage. But David, what was interesting, what we found too, was, David, you had at one point tried even like the score to match the genre, but it became too. How do you put it? Like almost episodic or something?
Yeah,
or like
it didn't
like
really
this
work.
This chord or something.
Yeah, we thought about doing that, and we even had like temp music from like Friday the 13th for the slasher part. But it felt, partly it also felt a little too disjointed because you want it all to feel like one movie, and rather than like a bunch of shorts or vignettes or something. But we also found on this movie that it didn't really work with sort of a traditional score. Like we with Benjamin Wallfish, who did the score, we started, doing the typical thing with sort of strings and orchestra, and it just felt wrong for some reason. So we decided to just be bold and do something very different. So it's something with a lot of sort of weird sounds and things, a lot of like ticking clocks, and there's even like very unexpected things for a horror movie, like saxophones. But he does use the saxophone in a way that doesn't sound like a traditional saxophone. Like he messes around with it, and he recorded it in a way where a human couldn't play it like that. Like it's sort of layered, and he does some really interesting things. I love the score in this movie because it's something very different, but it's what was needed for this movie to really work.
I'm gonna have to listen for that sax next time I watch this because I'm a sax player and I didn't pick up on that. So it must.
The very first thing you hear over the logo, the studio logos, is that saxophones.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I'll definitely.
But yeah, like it doesn't sound like your traditional saxophone.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I did not know it was a sax until I was told. Yeah.
You kind of answered the next question I had. I wasn't expecting the answer to be specifically music, but I was going to ask about, balancing all these different things, these subgenres, these creatures, which is something you kind of did, Gary, in the third Annabelle movie, which I love. I love that movie. I love that
thanks.
It is just a fun house, and it's like how much stuff. It's like everything but the kitchen sink kind of feeling, which is you're getting that in this too. And I love that music kind of becomes the connecting thread for all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Going back, like it was interesting because it's just one of those things where you have that idea where you're like, oh, you could do different scores. Like in theory, it sounds awesome, and then you go, oh no, this doesn't work at all. So it was in that being the through line of the movie, it really does bring everything together. Much like and I think Wallfish crushes it. Like I'm a big fan of his already, but I was like, it just feels different from him, which I really like. Like I like when someone's kind of I mean, he's done horror before, but this feels like something really almost experimental in a lot of ways. It's cool.
Yeah. The other thing I mentioned earlier was the kills, of which there are plenty, because you get to just refresh your roster and then do it a different way, which is awesome. I was just watching your YouTube video, David, about the practical effects done.
Oh, yeah.
And man, I love that you do that on your channel, how you are just breaking down how these shots are done, sometimes in very simple ways, hiding a cut in a pan, and the way that you show with you and your wife and producer of the film, is it Lada, right? Yeah, the way that you guys would shoot things just as like a proof of concept or seeing if it would work this way. I think it's so valuable to break things down in such a simple way for especially younger fans watching who might enjoy these movies, wonder how they're done, and then seeing like, oh, I can do that. I just have to think about it in a creative way. So
I think of them like the Penn and Teller of movie making. Like it's like, here's how we did the trick. Like, and I love it because it's like they dumb it down for people like me, and it's fantastic. Not dumb it down, but just really make it accessible, and which I love. So.
And speaking of Penn and Teller, I do like sort of that magic trick aspect of it, where you like trying to be a little clever with your cuts and your camera angles and to make it work. And when it comes to the YouTube channel, I mean, that's what I've always wanted to see. Like, I want sort of directors to talk about how it's done and what it was like, and if other people aren't doing it, well, then I'll do it. Like, sorry, you're not getting Christopher Nolan, but at least you can see how I do it. No, and so that's something, what I wanted to see. And, I've always been sort of devouring the special features on going back to the Laserdisc era. And, unfortunately, these days, it's less and less of that because so much is streaming now, and then you don't get commentary tracks and all these things. So that's I love those things. So, for example, for Until Dawn, I made sure that I recorded a commentary track for it, and we're putting all like deleted and alternate scenes on there, so you can get that stuff. And then I want to do more on the YouTube channel as well, because especially with this movie, with all these sort of practical effects and all the cool things we did, I really want people to know that this is how we did it, and like, look how cool, we did, a miniature version of the set for this particular thing, and we did it like this for this, and so that sort of stuff really excites me.
Yeah, so much of the kills in this movie are practical, which I love, and in fact, it's hard to spot any CG. Not that it's a bad thing when you do, but for us, I feel like seeing the practical stuff is just so much more rewarding. Because like you said, it's like a magic trick, and it's more impressive to me when you know that it's something tactile that they did, as opposed to like creating it wholesale on a computer.
Yeah, there was a shot from the behind the scenes footage that I was like, you know, this movie's going to be very gory and very fun and very tactile when you can see one of the cameras is just covered in like saran wrap or something to keep it from getting backsplash.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we wanted to I wanted to try and do it as practical as possible, and then there are visual effects in there for certain things. And like one of my favorite shots actually is a combination of the two, which maybe why it turned out so well, but there's a head that gets crushed with a sledgehammer,
Yes.
and we did crush an actual dummy head. I did it myself because I want to do it, and it looked cool, but it was like the UPP who did the visual effects, they went out and shot an element to do it even better because they also had this approach of they knew we wanted to take practical as far as possible. So they also like shot practical elements to comp in. So they added, a shot of a skull that they shot on blue screen that they smashed with actual sort of all this goo inside, and then added that together with the actual dummy on set, and it looks spectacular, like it's so over the top.
Yeah, that's the one where in the remains you see an eyeball.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, that kind of like
You
runny
got
egg
eyeballs in there.
texture is so disgusting.
It's so good. Yeah.
So gross.
And like the whole movie I'm watching, I'm like, maybe this is my favorite kill. Maybe this is my favorite kill. That one comes in, I'm like, damn, another contender, dude.
It was funny actually because we added that element. That shot came in kind of late. It was just the dummy head for the longest time, and I actually hadn't shown the studio the final thing, so they saw it when we had the final mix playback. Where we'd done all the sound mix, so you play it back for the studio, and that shot was new, and I was like, oh right, I didn't show this to anyone. So that came up, and you could hear people in there going like, ooh, like, holy shit, and I was sitting there like, oh, I hope they don't think it's too much or like want us to cut it or something, but no, it was all good. They were all on board.
You both have to have favorite kills from horror movies past, right? I would love to know what some of your favorites are, or just favorite horror movies in general.
Oh, I mean, favorite kills. I'm actually gonna go outside of the horror genre.
Okay.
And speaking of all the practical effects, I'm gonna go with the digital effect. But in Irreversible, the French movie,
the
fire
hydrant
extinguisher,
or the extinguisher,
it's
hydrant, yes, the extinguisher, yes.
Fire hydrant, like the Hulk pulls
yeah,
out.
yeah.
No, but I mean that's one of my favorite effects ever because it affects you so much, and there's a great sort of behind the scenes on how they did it, and it is sort of like a combination of actor, puppet, and digital effects. And so hidden cuts, all of the things that I like. Sometimes it's a real fire extinguisher. Sometimes it's sort of half and CG. But that is one shot that sort of it makes you feel really bad.
Yes.
I remember when the movie came out on home video. My brother, I think he was going to eat or something, and I was like, "Hey, I have to show you this thing." And afterwards, like, yeah, I'm not going to go anymore.
I think you're the second person we've interviewed who has cited that kill. Joe Lynch also cited that as a big
cool.
moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just so
that's cool.
Yeah.
For me, I think one of my greatest strengths and one of my greatest weaknesses is I have a terrible memory. Like I do not have the Wikipedia of recall.
Yeah.
Like
I'm with
so
you, man.
many of the horror fans do. And of course I have favorite, but I'll, I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. So Dream Warriors, Phillips death.
Puppet?
Yeah. Like I at least once a week I'll look down on my arms and think about that scene where the veins are getting, ripped out of his arms and there's a great shot of his feet to the thing. That whole sequence is so well done. And by the way, the whole movie's I love that movie.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of my favorites. It really was one of those that just sticks with me. Recent years, my son and I have become such fans of the Terrifier, franchise.
Nice.
Just some dads and sons go outside and play cats, and others sit and watch horror movies. And but I think those are so. Again, going practical and all that stuff. Like I just there's so many there to point to that are just like and I love that they're pushing the boundaries and stuff. I feel like that's what the genre should do in a lot of ways, or some movies anyway should really just be pushing it a little bit and seeing how far it can go. And I like that about it. So there's a ton of kills in that franchise that I love. So, but yeah, and then just it's like I'm a huge fan of Lost Boys, Halloween, any Carpenter thing. I just vibe off of in a big way.
Have you had the chance to meet John?
I did. And I sat down with him for a meeting, I don't know, a couple years back. And, I'm terrible at those things because I don't know whether to go in as like a fan or whether to go in as like, oh, I don't know what they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do they want to be like, at a certain point, does it just become white noise being told how fucking great you are?
Right.
So I didn't bring anything to sign. And then when I've talked to people who have met with him, like, oh, what'd you get signed? I'm like, fuck. Like, no. I was like, damn it. But man, he's the best. He's just got a great outlook on the business, and just seems like a pretty grounded dude. Like I just like his take on things. And he's a huge gamer too, like I am. So we kind of talk more about that. We talked more about Fallout 70. We talked more about that than anything else.
Yeah, you start talking about video games.
We talked about Crash Bandicoot, I think.
Yeah.
How many times have you? Oh, really?
We've only met him once in like a brief Zoom interview.
Yeah,
and we were terrified.
Oh yeah, he was great though. Yeah. I told him that I love Starman, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's a chick movie."
That's what I love, dude. I love that curmudgeonly, just like he gives it to you straight. But talk about a career. I mean, to be able to do what he's done. I mean, oh my God, so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are both pretty big video game fans, right?
I mean, Gary more than me. I love video games. I just don't play them that often.
They're time-consuming.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. I enjoy them, but I can't find the shows say like it's a short game. It's 20 hours of gameplay. I'm like, I don't have 20 hours.
Yeah, no, I'm very sort of an old school gamer, so I still sort of like. I had to play like the Paper Mario games because I played them from when the first one came out. So I don't play a ton of modern games, but I've played some horror games like Outlast and Resident Evil series and things like that. And I really enjoy those, so I should play more because I always find that horror games scare me more than horror movies.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge gamer. I've been lifelong gamer. I am one of my proudest achievements is being a regional semifinalist in the Nintendo World Championships back in like 1992 or whatever it was. But
wait, for what game?
It's not. Wait, that sounds way more impressive than it actually is. There was like a Nintendo World Championship back in the early 90s, I guess it was, and they traveled the country and they did it was for the launch of like Super Mario. I think it was like Super Mario 3 or something. But anyway, it's like earlier in the day you would have to do. It was a timed event, and you'd have to collect 50 coins on World 1-1 and Super Mario Brothers. You'd have to do a lap in Rad Racer, and then whatever time you had left, you'd have to, rack up the score in Tetris. I think you had 3 minutes.
Wow.
So I won the first round of the earlier in the day, and then you got to come back later that night and do the other thing, which I was and by you show up thinking you're going to be one of 10 and it's like you're one of 300, so it wasn't as but so I've been I just love gaming, and oh my God, I also love dogs. We've got 3 big we're big pug people, but and all dog people, but I don't play multiplayer stuff too much. Like I get super into some games like Helldivers or whatever. But at a certain point, there's people that you don't have the time to put into it, so you just feel like every time I'm just getting crushed.
Yes.
So I'm a big role playing game guy. Like I love JRPGs, and I treat those like books, like novels. So I'll dip into it for a half hour, an hour before bed. And then there's no like really sense of urgency of like, oh, I got to get good because I got to get on, and you can just progress through the story in a big way. Although Elden Ring did suck up my life.
Oh my gosh, I played Elden Ring as well. I love that game. I literally have on my phone the turtle with the Pope hat. I adore Elden
fantastic.
Ring.
Yeah.
Well, you play JRPGs? Have you played like Fire Emblem and stuff?
Yeah, Fire Emblem. Yeah.
Yes.
I finally just finished Octopath Traveler 2.
Nice.
I've never played Persona 5, or
I haven't either. They're so long that I'm scared of that.
I know. So I just started that, and we'll see. We'll see how far I get. but everybody tells me it's like, one of the gold standards. But my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VII.
Oh,
okay, classic. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people.
Yeah. That
That
was like the gateway drug for
Yes.
role playing games for me. Because before that, it was all action and stuff like that. But that was really
Yeah. David, correct me if I'm wrong. The previous movies that you worked on were the Shazam movies, right? Before Until Dawn. What's it like coming back to horror after doing more of a bigger tentpole movie, like with those Shazam? Like, did you find more creative freedom, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been longing to do because horror is my favorite genre. So already after the first Shazam, I was looking at doing a horror movie. Because I was like so eager to get back to it, but we had to do Shazam 2 before the kids grew up.
Yeah.
So then after Shazam 2, it's like, well, now I really have to do a horror movie, which why this one was so perfect because I got to do all of the horror.
Yeah.
Like go full out, so I didn't have to like pick a genre, like we could just do all of them, No, so that I loved that. But I mean, yeah, there are very different, and it's certainly nice to do an R rating and to be able to really kill people and go there. I got some critique from some people of sort of Shazam, how brutal it gets, where like killing monsters, eating people, and killing people. I'm like, this is supposed to be a family movie. Aren't you taking things a little too far? But those were the kinds of movies as a kid that I loved. Like. I was very young when I saw like Raiders of the Lost Ark and the melting faces and all that, and it was awesome. I think
Gremlins has a body count.
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, these days it's too sort of focused on, well, no, but this has to be just this one thing. This has to be just this one thing. And I'm like, no, let's have some stakes and scariness in the kids stuff, and let's have some levity and other things,
Yeah, and Until Dawn is very funny. I forget if we've already said that, but it's so funny and successful in that regard. I'm not sure if people are expecting that. But it's great.
No, I tend to sort of gravitate to and sort of make those kinds of films that are like a fun time, even though it's not fun for the characters, it's horrible for them. They don't know that, we're having a good time, but it's something that's very satisfying to watch with an audience, to hear all their reactions and like, ooh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And laughter and,
I forget who we were talking to last night at the after party, but they had seen the screener of the movie, or a screening of the film, with like studio execs earlier, maybe like a month ago. And they said that once one person started laughing at some of the horror elements, it kind of broke it open for everyone and gave them permission to laugh. Because, sitting in that theater last night with that crowd, there are some crazy, horrible things, if you're just looking at them objectively, happening to these people who you like, but people are laughing and like clapping their hands along with it. And that's the great thing about horror, is like we all understand the fun time of it all. Especially with this movie where they're going to come back and get another chance. That helps in that regard.
For sure. Like, I think you can't go that brutal if they died permanently, because then it was like, well, that's really sad. What happened to that person? But now it's like, okay, like I can accept that.
Yeah, at a certain point, they're just like, fuck, this one's a wash. Let's just try again. Just like, just kill me, get it over with. Let's go for another round.
I mean, like, that's kind of
it's like in a video game where it's like, well, I already fucked that up. I'll just jump down here and die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's even going back to, like, I don't know, the ultimate kind of time loop movie, like Groundhog Day. There is that sequence where he's just killing himself over and over again.
Yeah, he's just over it. Yeah.
I feel like that just ends up happening anyway in a time loop movie.
Yeah, when it comes to time loop movies, I think there's always a danger of them becoming too repetitive or a little bit boring. I didn't feel that way with this. Was there anything specifically that you had in mind to avoid repetition becoming negative?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way you do. I can get pretty bored by it. It's tough, but also it's been done before. I guess it's not. I don't want to say that because I'm thinking like Groundhog Day wasn't boring, Happy Death Day wasn't. Those weren't boring. So, but they had been done before, right? So it really was about like, if we're going to do that kind of mechanic, we have to change it from the usual. They wake up and everything's the same, but they're different. They're learning and leveling up, as it were. So that's where the idea came from. Like, okay, well, if they're going to reset, then it can't just be the same thing. It has to be a new thing that they're confronting a new. And that's, thinking about how we were going to tie into branching narratives and the different subgenres that the game got into. that's where it kind of all fed into that discussion of like, okay, it serves the purpose of letting us explore different subgenres of horror, and then also having the characters reset, and then they are learning, but they're also progressively getting weaker and weaker, and the stakes then become, so it isn't just they have infinite number of chances. It really became about, okay, well, that we need to provide stakes, and that's where you only have so long until the fear that you're feeling really affects you, and you become a part of the thing you're scared of, as opposed to running away from it. You're now a part of it, and that threat, those stakes, I think that helped sort of
that was really important to have that limit, and also to show that the characters aren't like reset, like dying over and over really takes a toll on you.
Yeah, mentally and physically.
Yeah, for sure.
Right,
it would in real life as well, I think, because it's not pleasant to die horribly over and over again. Like that's going to mess you up.
Yeah, you don't wake up refreshed. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a nice sleep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, I hope people who might be skeptical of the differences give the movie a chance, because like we all said, just seeing the game in movie form would be, I think, a lost opportunity to take something like this and do something new and fresh with it. And I really like how you incorporate the video game elements, like we've discussed this whole time, with like, the characters having new lives and all those different things. Plus, Peter Stormare's there, and he's in both the game and the movie. And I know that, David, you were excited to work with him as a fellow Swede.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a hero forever, because I like growing up in Sweden, seeing him in these big Hollywood movies. Like, oh, he's from Sweden.
Yeah.
Now we have a few of them with the Skarsgård family. But,
Skarsgård royalty.
It was very important to have him in the movie. And, I wrote him a letter. I wanted to have him in my first movie, Lights Out, actually, but the studio felt that he couldn't play like a lovable family man because he's too creepy. But so for this one, I wrote him a letter, told him like, oh, I've been wanting to work with you for a decade now, and wanted him to be in the movie.
And the letter was in Swedish, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that he said, like, he wrote back, it's like, oh, that's great, because then we can talk shit about everyone on set, and they won't know what we're saying. But he cares very much about the Hill character and wants to make sure that it's right, and it's important for him.
Well, awesome, guys! Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for the very fun movie.
Great, thank you.
No, thank you. Like we said, we're big fans in our house, so thanks. This was a thrill.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime a filmmaker has a teenage son, I'm like, we got it in.
I would love to talk more sometime about just games in general, because I feel we both play.
Yeah, of course.
Games.
Oh, dude, anytime.
Yes.
Anytime.
Well, thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Take care.
Bye.